So, I don't really know how to start a video like this, mainly due to the topic at hand. Pac-Man. I know Pac-Man, you know Pac-Man, and given the sheer volume of media this guy is in, you almost certainly love something featuring him. Personally, I was a Pac-Man World kid growing up, and with the recent release of Pac-Man World 2 Repack, I've been revisiting this delightful franchise and wanting to talk about it in video form. What is there to talk about? Well, nothing that hasn't already been said, but we'll say it anyway. We're going to talk about the ghosts. Every video game needs enemies, right? And who better to act as the enemies of a yellow circle than 4 multicolored ghosts? Makes perfect sense to me. Since the 80s, the debut of the ever-iconic Ghost Gang, the ranks of the ghosts has only increased over time, with plenty of new characters, species, and colors of ghosts being added or subtracted from the franchise over the years. So today we're going to go through every single ghost that ever appeared in the Pac-Man series, and see exactly how this group has evolved. Quick disclaimer, I tried to be as thorough as possible, but there's a lot of rather obscure games in the series that don't seem to have a whole lot of documentation online, so I apologize if I missed anyone. Pac-Man Wiki was the main source I looked through, so, quality may vary. Still, it serves as a fantastic jumping off point, so I'm confident, if nothing else, that I'll mention at least 90% of them, which is still passing, so I count that as a victory. The original Pac-Man introduced the 4 classic members of the Ghost Gang, Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. To begin, there's Blinky, the leader of the bunch. He's commonly shown to be the most aggressive of the ghosts, chasing Pac-Man directly. He was given the nickname Shadow in the original game for this very reason. The aggressive tendencies were carried over into most other games, especially the World Trilogy, and it was in that trilogy, along with several other games in the late 90s and early 2000s, that mixed up Blinky and Clyde's name. Possibly to better emphasize how he's the leader, at least that's my own assumption, but, who knows. Second is Pinky, who is very appropriately the pink one. She would try to ambush Pac from the front, making her an especial pain in the whatchamacallit when she pinned you against Blinky. She's also the only female member of the classic quartet, though originally she was male like everyone else. When she was gender swapped, they also started to introduce the idea that she has a crush on Pac-Man, which naturally causes friction between her and the Miz. This was especially prominent in World 2 and Ghostly Adventures. Third is Inky, the blue ghost, also named Bashful. In the original game, Inky would determine his movement based on Blinky and Pac-Man's positions to each other. Often, this results in him sandwiching Pac between himself and another ghost, much like Blinky and Pinky. He's often been depicted as either the goofy one or the second in command, depending on the media. Finally, there's Clyde, the dim-witted goofball of the team. In the original, he's programmed to chase Pac the same way Blinky does, but if he gets too close, he runs off to the lower left-hand corner of the maze. Likely because of this, and his Japanese name sometimes being translated to stupid, he's often depicted as the brainless klutz of the team. Good for pure muscle, but not for much else, or more sensitive than the others. As mentioned before though, he and Blinky would get their names mixed up for a time. Together, these 4 would be known as the Ghost Gang, and while many other baddies come and go, these 4 would usually be found in every single title as the most recurring villains. That said, there are many times where one or more ghosts are removed or replaced by others, such as the next ghost. Ms. Pac-Man was the first game to introduce a new ghost, namely Sue. She replaced Clyde, likely so as to add a female ghost for the female Pac to contest against, as again, this was back when Pinky was male. She operated exactly the same as Clyde did in the original arcade game, and while she's not quite as well known as the other 4, she has appeared in several other Pac-Man games, including Pac-Land, Pac-Mania, and Ms. Pac-Man Maze Madness. She'd also be recolored to purple around this time, so as to differentiate her from Clyde whenever they appear at the same time, though there's still a couple of times where she's depicted in her original orange color. She was at peak prominence throughout the 80s, acting as the 5th female member of the Ghost Gang, but slowly fell to obscurity by the 2000s, returning around the 2010s for games like Pac-Chain, Pac-Chomp, and Pac-Man 256. Pac-N-Pal holds the very special distinction of introducing the first friendly ghost in the series, Miru. Despite her very Kirby-ish design, she is in fact a ghost, as stated by official media and some design sheets that show she was going to have a more in-between design based on a ghost and a pack person. Miru is the titular pal of Pac-Pal and will wander the maze grabbing fruits. You can then eat the fruits she carries, but if she enters the ghost house, they'll vanish. She also moves slower when she has one, so if you play your cards right, you can use her to clear the mazes much faster. She also appeared as a playable character for the first time in the Minecraft X Pac-Man DLC, but otherwise has made very scarce appearances since. Junior Pac-Man would come next and introduce two new ghosts to the fray. The first is Tim, that game's orange ghost. Just like in Ms. Pac-Man, Junior Pac replaced Clyde with Tim, who is functionally the same entity. Unlike Sue, Tim never really amounted to anything at all. His only future appearance was in the Sandbox evolution as one of the level elements for its Pac-Man DLC, being recolored to a pale peachish color so he differs from Clyde and Sue. I'd also assume that he's a young child to mirror Junior Pac, much like Sue mirroring the female Miss Pac-Man, but he'll likely never appear again, so who knows. Other than that, there's also Yum Yum, the actual parallel to Junior Pac-Man. Unlike Tim, she wasn't one of the hazard ghosts, but rather played a role in the thrilling and dramatic storytelling. Basically, Junior Pac and Yum Yum fall in love, only for her father, Blinky, to disapprove. Junior attempts to woo Yum Yum with a balloon, and Blinky takes the chance to swoop in and destroy the Pac child, only for Ms. Pac to come to their rescue. They escape, and their love is allowed to blossom. And then she never appeared again, likely due to legal issues surrounding the Midway Pac-Man games. Yum Yum never appeared in another title, only receiving a few small and scant cameos. Pac-Mania comes next, and has the largest total of ghosts that we've seen yet. Alongside the main four and Sue, we also get two newbies, who the game refers to as commons, potentially making them more a species than anything. First is the green ghost, Funky. Funky operates like Sue in that he chases after Pac-Man without ever entering a scatter mode. Unlike the others though, he can jump much like Pac-Man can in this game, and he'll always do so after Pac-Man himself jumps. His jump is slightly lower though, so with proper timing you can still use the jump to bound over him. Funky has since made some return appearances in Sandbox Evolution and 256, but there are also a few other green ghosts that might be funky but might also just be green-colored ghosts. These include the Sentry Ghost from Pac-Man World, the Green Player 4 from Pac-Man Vs, and the unnamed Greenie from Pac-Man Tilt, which could be his one appearance using the Pac-Man Party art style. The other Mania newcomer is Spunky, the Grey Ghost. She is less aggressive than Funky, usually patrolling the higher ends of the mazes, and only chasing Pac-Man if she catches sight of him. She can also jump like Funky, with her jump being exactly as high as Pac-Man's, rendering his jump completely useless to avoid her with. You technically can, I think, but good luck with that. I've never been able to do it. Like Funky, she shows up in 256 and Sandbox, but unlike him, there's never been any other Grey Ghosts in this series, as far as I can tell, making her a relatively unique entity to Mania. The relationship between Funky and Spunky is also slightly inconsistent. While they are related, some sources call them siblings and others say cousins. Another case of the nebulous reality of the Pac-Man franchise, I suppose. And now on to Pac-Man Arrangement, specifically the 1996 arcade version, which introduced everyone's favorite bit of Pac-Man trivia, Kinky. This nerdy-looking geek is unique among ghosts in that he is always vulnerable, and able to be eaten without a power pellet. However, if he runs into one of the others, he'll combine with them, making them bigger and giving them some unique power on top of it. Blinky gains a horizontal charge, Pinky can jump around the maze, Clyde spits out extra Pac dots he'll have to eat, and Inky's is the most dangerous, as he'll spawn a copy of himself that mirrors his movement in the maze. On top of this, different colored Kinky clones are used as minions by the gang during their Ghost Mecha boss battle, and these guys can kill Pac if he doesn't take care of them correctly. Now, all that said, Kinky never appeared again, outside of the various re-releases of Pac-Man Arrangement. Beyond the general obscurity of the character, I imagine that the name plays some kind of role in this choice, and since it's probably the only thing people remember about him specifically, let's talk about it a bit. At the risk of stepping all over the joke, there is a reason why he's called that. In Japanese, Kinky is called Kinzo, which roughly translates to gold, referencing the gold colors seen a few times in which he's not vulnerable. When translating, they likely took the kin part of Kinzo and stuck the ki suffix to align with the standard ghost naming system that we've seen so far and will see later. Blinky, pinky, inky, funky, spunky, glitchy, punky, winky, itchy, blasty. Basically, if you're not Clyde, Sue, or Tim, you got a key name. It's just a shame then that this word would take on a much different context in the modern era, as that likely just kinda destroyed any hope of this guy being a recurring character. We now reach 1999, the tail end of the 90s, and Pac-Man's jump to 3D. And of course, we got a great many ghosts to populate this new and exciting dimension. Firstly, there's the ghost from Pac-Man's party that we see during the intro. There's that sentry ghost I mentioned, who might be funky, as well as multiple colors of ghosts in the background, several of which being colors we've yet to see in the games at this point. There's also a DJ and chef ghost, who I always thought was just Clyde and Inky respectively, but looking at them, they do have differently colored gloves, thus confirming that they are entirely different life forms. In gameplay itself, Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde reprise their roles as enemies in the maze modes. Later mazes also use some green ghosts that might be various copies of Funky, of course. The main four also show up as enemies in the levels themselves, most notably throughout the factory and mansions. In the other four worlds, you'll more commonly find various generic ghost enemies dressed up in costumes matching the world's theme. These include purple pirate ghosts, tan ruins ghosts, light blue space ghosts, and off-white clown ghosts. For the game's remake, Pac-Man World Repack, the Ghost Gang were removed from levels entirely bar the first one, with the four ghost enemies I mentioned returning in greater numbers because of it. The only real change to them is that the clown ghosts now became magenta. Alongside them are two new enemies to replace the gang in the last two worlds, light green worker ghosts and orange Halloween ghosts. Regarding these ghosts as actual enemies overall, they are... they're ghosts from Pac-Man. They scuttle around and hurt you if you touch them, but don't really have any other mode of attack beyond just moving around and running into people. But then, of course, is the biggest addition to the Ghost family, Orson. So you see, the thrilling narrative of Pac-Man World involves Pac-Man's family being kidnapped by an evil robot doppelganger named Talkman. Upon his defeat, Talkman blows up, revealing he was piloted by a tiny gray ghost called Orson, named after Citizen Kane director Orson Welles. Orson cries over the fact that no one loves a ghost, only for Pac-Man to prove him wrong and right by soullessly devouring him. Roll le credits. In the remake, this end serves as the bad ending if you miss some of your friends. If you save everyone though, Pac-Man and Orson make amends, with the little guy even being invited to his birthday, which he missed. What's crazier is that the good ending is the canon ending, as proved by Pac-Man World 3. In that game, Orson returns as Pac-Man's main support and strategist. He learns of Irwin's evil ploy to siphon power from the Ghost's homeworld, the Spectral Realm, and so forcibly drags Pac-Man into the problem, because sadly, it's his name on the box, so what are the choices there? He uses his teleporter to take Pac-Man to each area, and guides him to whatever goal he must reach. He also builds a new model of Talkman, used for one level to trash an army of Irwin's strongest soldiers. Sadly, he never made any further physical appearances after, other than potentially controlling Talkman in Pac-Man World Rally, as well as a costume and Gashapon cameo in Pac-Man World 2 Repack. Something weird about that is that in World 1 Repack, he was called Talkman Ghost, but in World 2 Repack, he was given his proper name back, so, I don't know what the hell was going on there. Moving to the 21st century, we got Pac-Man World 2, which, surprisingly, is the sequel to Pac-Man World 1. Like the original, this game features multiple ghosts acting as normal enemies, but unlike that game, the Ghost Gang were never one of them. They got their own special mechs, most of which were ghost-themed, and served as the end-of-world bosses. Regarding the enemies, there's the generic purple ghost, mainly seen in Paradise Meadows, as well as numerous costumed ghosts to match the level themes like in World 1. These include, as are named by the Prima Strategy Guide, Blowy from Treetops, Throwy from Snowy Mountain, Flamey from the Volcano and Ghost Island, and Speary from the Ocean. There's also the extremely unique case of Blunder, the ghost with a gun from Canyon Chaos. There's only one of him in the entire game, which I suppose by default makes him a character rather than a species. More importantly, this guy is totally absent from the Japanese version of the game, as well as the remake Pac-Man World 2 Repack. I can only assume that they thought the gun might have been a bit too much, which makes sense for the remake, I guess, though why the original Japanese version would deem it undesirable is well beyond me. Speaking of said remake, other than Blunder, it does bring back all the familiar enemies from before, this time with official, less creative names. There's Ghost, Blowgun Ghost, Snowball Ghost, Fireball Ghost, and Harpoon Ghost. They even introduced a new enemy for Ghost Island, the Magician Ghost, able to fire 2 different magic spells and shield Wormwood's weak points in the revamped version of Ghost Bayou. Along with them, we get even more new ghosts in the all-new post-game levels. The normal ghosts now wield poison packs during Poisonous Meadows, the blowgun ghosts are replaced with these leaf guys that spit out whirlwinds, the snowball ghosts drop landmines during Pro Thunder Skater, the fireball ghosts now leave behind trails of fire, and the harpoon ghosts are now yellow with electrified ammo, and the magician ghosts gain the ability to teleport, making them harder to chomp. We even get new unnamed ghosts piloting the EX fights seen in the post-game too. Sadly, none of these new post-game ghosts get figures, and by proxy don't have official names, but seeing as the plot for the post-game is Pac-Man traveling back in time to the events of Spooky's original Reign of Terror, these mooks are probably just some of his original minions from the past. Speaking of said spooky specter, this game also introduced the big guy himself, Spooky. As told to us by Professor Pac, Spooky was an ancient and all-powerful ghost who threatened Pac-Land in ancient times. To counter his threat, the great Pac-Wizard created 5 golden fruits to seal him away. Armed with these fruits and his boundless courage, a noble Pac-Knight rose to vanquish Spooky, sealing him underneath the golden fruit tree at the center of Pac Village. However, one night, the Ghost Gang inadvertently plucked the fruits, causing Spooky to rise and threaten Pac-Land once more. Thus, Pac-Man sets out on his grand quest to retrieve the fruits and defeat Spooky. Despite all of that, though, Spooky is kind of a non-entity in the game. He's not seen after the intro until Ghost Bayou, where he sees Pac-Man just kind of turn off the evil ghost tree Wormwood. After doing so and returning the fruits to Pac Village, Spooky appears and challenges the Golden Pack to a final fight, ultimately leading to his resealing. Spooky's role is largely unchanged in the remake, though his fight, like the other bosses, is heavily redone. In this reality, it's Spooky who uses the fruits against Pac-Man, giving himself new gold forms with various new attacks. More shockingly, he destroys the tree before the fight, leaving Pac-Man no choice but to destroy the evil specter once and for all. Spooky also appears in the post-game, as mentioned before, set during his initial conquest, and having captured the time-traveling Pac-Boy and Pac-Sis. Pac-Man deals with his minions again and faces him down in an even harder fight, this time stealing him under the tree, setting the stage for the present day. Pretty neat example of them having their cake and eating it too, I must say. Really like that. Other than World 2, though, Spooky sadly has not made any other major appearances. He's a racer in World Rally alongside the other 2 world villains, and he also appears in the long-dead mobile game Pac-Man Monsters. This game features 2 different forms of Spooky, both of which being much more buff than his previous designs. Kind of a shame, because Spooky would have worked really well as a recurring villain for the franchise. But such is the life of a Pac-Man ghost, I suppose. Following the massive set of ghosts seen in Pac-Man World 2 is the oddly named and oft-forgotten Pac-Man All-Stars. You might think this game is just a remade Pac-Man collection, i.e. Super Mario All-Stars, but it's actually an expanded version of the multiplayer mode seen in Pac-Man Adventures in Time and Ms. Pac-Man Maze Madness. Our story for this game, which is not explained in the game but rather in the manual, features a new ultimate evil ghost called Wandy the Wizard. This little spook has kidnapped the fairies responsible for creating Pac-Land's power pellet supply, challenging Pac-Man and his family to come to the Ghost Realm and save them. We never learn what Wandy's deal is. He apparently also sapped the ghosts of their strength and conducted experiments on some of them, which just makes his goals even more confusing. As a boss, he also doesn't do anything. He just kind of chases you and fires occasional magic blasts. And when you do get all the Pac Dots, a fairy swoops in with a single power pellet and he's done and dusted, which is like, wow. So, in total, cute design, terrible leader. 5 out of 10 ghosts. Severe downgrade from Spooky, all things considered. Pac-Pix is a very special little game for the ghosts, as it introduces a special subspecies of ghost made out of ink. Once upon a time, there was a nameless, faceless wizard who made a magical ink called Ghost Ink. This ghost ink could spawn ghosts, as you would probably tell, who proceeded to make a mess of various books and artworks. Pac-Man worked to defeat the ghosts, eventually trapping them all in a single book. They turned their magic on Pac-Man and trapped him within the same book, leaving him to ask the player to use the magic pen to gobble the ghosts and save the day. Of the ghosts in Pac-Pix, the only familiar one is really Pinky, acting as the standard mass-produced grunt of this game. Given that this Pinky is made of ghost ink and the total lack of her co-hosts, it's likely a unique entity. There's also this blue ghost who, despite resembling Inky, is called Blue in-game. Blue is the other basic grunt, running from the doodles with a quick burst of speed before needing to rest. For the rest of the normies, there's Barrow, the white ghost who jumps to the other side of the page before becoming dizzy and vulnerable, and Numboo, a group of orange ghosts who must be eaten in numerical sequence. There's Berry Boo, who's only vulnerable to chomping from behind, and his stronger variant, Berry Vader, who has Blue's quick speed bursts. Lastly, there's Pepetta, a yellow ghost who drops ink on the page to block your lines. There's also 4 boss ghosts. First is Bigaboo, a recurring boss who attacks with different strategies each fight, including growing in size, flying, and wearing armor. Second is Aloha, who attacks with pointy arrows and can only be beaten by eating his many eyes. Third is Ghost House, a flying machine piloted by ghosts whose exoskeleton can only be cracked with arrow projectiles. Finally is the Ink Master, a giant sentient pile of ink who can spawn dozens of minions and requires all your skills to defeat. In the end, the player beats the Ink Master and frees Pac-Man, as well as turning all the ghosts back into the ink. Pac-Man then seals the bottle containing the ink in a treasure chest and hides it at the bottom of the ocean where no one will ever find it. We never learn the identity of the wizard who made this stuff, though personally I'm gonna headcanon that it was Wandy. And just like that, one of the most lame villains manages to get their redemption. Good on ya, Wandy. Next, we got another big bad ghost with supposedly ultimate powers. It's Golvis from Pac-N-Roll, who is also, arguably, the first major antagonist in the Pac-Man timeline. This is due to this game taking place during Pac-Man's childhood, as he was being trained by Pac-Master in the art of ghost eating. The Ghost Gang, mad at their failures, decide to summon the Ultimate Ghost, a being said to be so horrible he was banished to space by the ghosts themselves. Of course, when Golvis reveals himself, he's a bit less threatening than one would expect, certainly more of a joke than spooky. But he's still not a threat to take lightly, though, as he removed the Pac-People's limbs before whisking them all away. Lucky for Pac-Man, the fairy Crystal, who apparently has a beef with Golvis, swoops in to save him, leading the little ball on a grand adventure to save Pac-Land. Despite Golvis' shortcomings, he is honestly fairly powerful. In order to reduce him to a vulnerable state, Pac-Man must eat 3 power pellets in quick succession. After doing this, however, Golvis is about as helpless as any ghost, able to be chomped with no issue. After many trials and travails, Pac-Man corners Golvis on his UFO and gives him one final chomp to end his evil, leaving him and the Ghost Gang stranded on the ocean. It's at this point his sentient guitar, Jack, speaks up and reveals Golfus wasn't banished for being too evil, but rather for being too clumsy and incompetent. Womp wah. Like Spooky, Golfus' only other appearance was in Pac-Man Monsters, sporting a radically different redesign. Said design actually makes him look like his namesake, Elvis Presley. He also appears in the marketing and art for Pac-Man Museum Plus, given its inclusion of Pac-and-Roll Remix. Speaking of, Golfus' role there is largely the same as the DS original, given it is a remake of said game, though without any of the cutscenes or plot explaining who he is or where he came from. So, if you played Pac-and-Roll Remix in Pac-Man Museum Plus and you didn't bother looking up the original cutscenes and you were confused and curious as to what the hell this thing's deal was, well, there you go. Pac-Man World 3 is a particularly notable game for Ghosts, as it adds an extra layer to their lore. Here we were introduced to the Spectral Realm, a parallel dimension that serves as the original home of the Ghosts. It's unknown if all ghosts come from here, but we at least know that Orson and most likely the Ghost Gang originate here. We also meet the Spectral Monsters, hostile ghostly monsters that, unlike ghosts, never really seem to exist outside the realm. That is, until Irwin began his siphoning experiment to drain the Spectral Realm of its power. His doing so weakens the walls between dimensions, allowing spectral monsters to pour out into the real world. Occasionally, these spectral portals open up, spitting out a few monsters for Pac to gobble up. According to Orson, the spectral monsters normally lurk in the dark caverns at the bottom of the realm, but thanks to the siphons they've been stirred up to the surface. He also claims that they're vicious little creeps even on the best days, and indeed they seem a lot more animalistic and primitive compared to the normal ghosts, being made of what seems to be a whirling mass of pure psychic energy. World 3 specifically gives us 3 different spectral monsters. The orange ones are spectral hunters, who simply chase after Pac-Man like a classic ghost. The light green ones are spectral sneakers, who charge at Pac-Man from a distance. Lastly are the spectral spitters, who keep their distance and fire purple lasers at Pac-Man. Despite all of this though, they still don't seem much stronger than a normal ghost, as a single power pellet will send them scattering. They also were never seen after this, presumably being resealed back in the Spectral Realm after Pac-Man stopped its collapse. Going off of this neat concept art, we were also going to get some blue monsters, as well as a bunch of monsters with like these weird, bizarre, and monstrous appearances. Ooh, this looks so cool! Oh, please include this in Pac-Man World 3 Repack now, Pro! I would love you forever if you did that! The Sleeping Ghosts are a new species of ghosts introduced for Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. These green ghosts are found snoozing in the maze, and when passed, they'll wake up and begin chasing Pac-Man. If more ghosts wake up, they'll join together into a ghost train. This makes it exponentially harder to dodge them, but also makes it easy to gulp them all down in one sitting, with them waiting in a clean and orderly line. Any ghosts still sleeping are also punted off the map if you get a fruit. These guys will return for Championship Edition 2, where they now attach themselves to one of the Ghost Gang as a leader for their train, as well as Pac-Man 99, where they are now awoken by Pac-Man simply passing them. Pac-Man 256 was a fairly notable game for Ghosts, as it not only had the main 4, but also brought back Sue, Spunky, and Funky after many years of obscurity and forgottenness. It also introduced a new ghost named Glitchy, who, like the game itself, was inspired by the infamous Maze 256 glitch. He's effectively a walking glitch, not only cycling between the Ghost Gang's colors, but also being able to teleport around the maze to catch Pac-Man off guard. He'll freeze in place briefly and emit a glitchy cloud for his tells, but caution is still needed to ensure he doesn't catch Pac-Man off guard. It's unknown exactly where this thing came from, if he's a unique entity or maybe a product of the 256 glitch, but regardless, this was Glitchy's only real appearance outside of a small cameo in Pac-Man Pop. And now we reach the Sandbox Evolution, a sandbox game where players can use various assets to assemble whatever world they want and share it online with their friends. In 2017, a Pac-Man DLC pack was released for this game, featuring assets to build your own mazes. Among the ghosts, we got Inky, Blinky, Pinky, Funky, Spunky, Clyde, Sue, and Tim. The main four act as they did in the arcade games. Funky and Tim move back and forth horizontally and vertically. Sue acts like Funky, but specifically tries to match Pac-Man's height, and Spunky acts as he did in 256, sleeping until Pac-Man gets too close. Joining them, however, is newcomer Punky, a dark green ghost who will rush straight at Pac-Man if he wanders into his line of sight, similarly to how Pinky does in 256. He'll stop chasing if he hits a wall or Pac-Man, and I imagine he's primarily here just to inherit Pinky's 256 behavior, so she could take on her original arcade pattern. This is also at the point where we begin getting ghosts that only make one appearance so far, as indeed, Punky has only shown up in the Sandbox evolution so far. Next on the list is Winky, a ghost from the mobile game Pac-Man Pop. And before moving on, oh my god, look at Pac-Man Pop! I think this might be worse than the Ghostly Adventures design, man. Like, jeez Louise, why does he look like a goddamn Funko Pop? Anyway, this game is basically Puzzle Bobble, with you popping bubbles and saving pack dogs from ghosts. Winky apparently was a friendly ghost who ran the game's challenge mode, but I wasn't able to find any screenshots due to the obscurity and, death of this game, so, And now see, if you thought that was the bottom of the barrel, it's time to talk about Apple Arcade. They got an exclusive Pac-Man game in Pac-Man Party Royale, the follow-up to Pac-Man Battle Royale. As a Battle Royale game, the packs are mostly at each other's throats, but there's still some ghosts scuttling around to mix things up. Blinky is the only familiar face, and the other two are new. The mint green ghost is Itchy, who will give you a negative effect if he's touched, ranging from slowing you down to muzzling your mouth so you can't eat anything, or even inverting all your controls, which, ugh. The other one, though, is Blasty, an orange ghost with a black mask that resembles a bomb. This is because if you touch him, he plants a bomb on the man who did it. The packs must then play hot potato with the explosive to see which one of them will get blown up. And finally, to round out the Pac-Man game series, we got two more ghosts to appear in some of Pac-Man's crossover adventures. The first is Creepy, a ghost from that Pac-Man Minecraft DLC I mentioned briefly earlier. As you'd guess, he's a ghost with the power of a creeper. He'll chase you if he catches sight of you, and then blow up, destroying a good chunk of your hard work. The other one is Bash, seen in the Pac-Man crossover event for Sonic Dash. He appears to replace Eggman and Zaz as the boss when you're playing as Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man, but does act similarly to those two. He spits out vulnerable ghosts as hazards and is quickly dealt with using QTEs. He's most notable for being a character unique to Sonic Dash, thus making him technically a Sonic character and not a Pac-Man character. But I mean, whatever. And now, with presumably all the game's ghosts covered, let's move on to the Pac-Man TV shows, starting with the original one that Hanna-Barbera made. There are two ghosts introduced in this show, the first being Dinky. Dinky is the Ghost Gang's 5-year-old nephew, and as such is extremely annoying and obnoxious. Sue seems to be more than able to handle him, but the rest can't stand the guy. He's also friends with Baby Pac, so that's kinda cute, but he also only appeared in 2 episodes, so, that's basically it for him. The other is the fairy Ghost Mother, who actually only appeared in 1 episode, so that's funny. She first appears after Clyde wishes that the Ghost Gang could thwart Pac-Man. In response, she gives the ghosts a magic book that brings to life all the stories within. The ghosts try to use these stories to do in Pac-Man, only to fail. The fairy appears to offer more books and plans, only for the Ghost Gang to angrily chase her away. Now see, I can only assume that she is the ghost of one of the fairies from Pac-Land. That only makes sense to me, I feel, yeah. And with that, we finally reach Ghostly Adventures. Oh boy, Ghostly Adventures. I understand there's some legit fans of this show out there, and that's completely fine. Unfortunately, dogpiling this show for its various flaws makes for easy brownie points, so I'm gonna do at least a little bit of that. Honestly, I've been thinking of making a whole video giving this weird-ass reboot a proper deep dive, because there's so much to say about this thing, I gotta say. So I'll try to keep this part slightly brief, just in case of that. But hey, wouldn't you know it, Ghostly Adventures got a ton of ghosts to cover. Firstly, there is the main villain, Lord Betrayus. Get it? Like, betray us? Clever. Likely because his mother named him such, he chose to betray the people of Pac-World, teaming up with the ghosts of the Netherworld to try to conquer Pac-World. He failed, of course, and was stripped of his mortal body, being dumped into the Netherworld for all eternity. At least until Paxter, the Pac-Man of this reality, opened the gates of hell and let him back out. Now, Betrayus, with his army of ghouls, ghosts, monsters, and demons, attempt to conquer Pac-World on a weekly basis, only to be thwarted by Pac and friends over and over. His main methods of world conquest include the capture or destruction of the Tree of Life, or reclaiming his mortal body from the repository. In spite of his presence and fire powers, Betrayus isn't much of a threat on his own, all things considered, being more of a whiny little brat than anything. His main sidekick is Butler. Get it? He's a butler and has a butt on his head. Clever! Butler was a key member of Betrayus' army during the Pac-World War, acting as a double agent to reveal the plans of the Resistance. Following Betrayus' defeat, Butler was punished by being forced into eternal servitude. As such, he is usually on the receiving end of whatever tantrum his boss is throwing, being burned, bashed, humiliated, and occasionally uses a dummy/decoy for Pac-Man to munch on. Betrayus' other main henchman is Butler's twin brother, Dr. A.H. Buttocks. Get it? His brother is a butler and he has a butt on his head. How very clever. I tell you, there were some top-class character namers working on this show. Anyway, Buttocks is a mad genius, always building new inventions to take down Pac-Man. And by build, I mean steal from the actual smartest mind in Pac-World, Circumference. His inventions include a mind-controlled microchip, a ghost possession extender device, a Ghostroid attraction machine, and 2 copies of Cersei's robot Grinder, Grindertron, and Grindette. So that right there is the main 3 ghosts that are unique to this reality. So let's start and list off the rest, starting with the 3 who serve major roles in the episodes. First is Spectre, the main villain of Season 1, Episode 25, The Spy Who Slimed Me. Spectre is a charismatic James Bond-esque ghost and master of possession, able to deceive even the closest of friends with his mimicry. Betrayus hires him to infiltrate Cersei's lab and steal the repository, only for him to reveal his plans to overthrow Betrayus afterwards. Pac tricks him with a fake repository, revealing Spectre's plan to his boss, resulting in his banishment to the bowels of the Netherworld. Second is Master Goo, aka Goober, the villain of Season 2, Episode 9, The Pac Be With You. In life, he was a master of Pac Fu, an ancient and noble martial art. However, during Betrayus' invasion, he defected to the nether side of Pac Fu, only for him and his fellow masters to vanish following their big battle. He re-emerges in the Netherworld, with Betrayus using him to train his ghost army in the art of Pac Fu to conquer Pac-World. Luckily for Pac, Blinky just so happened to also be a Pac Fu master, and was able to train Pac and friends to fight back Goo and his ninja ghost army. Finally, there's Captain Banshee, villain of Season 2, Episode 10, Captain Banshee and his Interstellar Buccaneers. This Waluigi-looking mofo is the captain of a crew of ghost pirates, who sail the skies of Pac-World as well as the vast reaches of space, looking for treasure in all forms. One such treasure was accidentally taken by a giant space cow named Moby Dick. Yes, this is all real. What the fuck is this show? Anyway, Banshee and Pac cross paths during Pac-Man's vacation, leading Banshee to try and swipe Pac's power berries to gain an edge on finding Mooby. His ship also has a built-in regeneration chamber, so any members of his ghostly crew Pac-Man eats will come right back. He ended up being shrunken and his regen chamber was pulled to bits, so he's not too much of a threat anymore these days. And with all the big ghosts covered, let's rapid fire through the rest. There's the Creepies, a pair of squid ghosts who act as hired muscle for Betrayus. The one in glasses is named Seymour, and the one in the fedora is never officially named. Then there's Ogle, a restaurateur who owns seemingly the only food stall in the Netherworld, which is a shame, as all his food is disgusting slop that only a dead creature could safely eat. He was also a boss in the game for some reason. Then there's Fred, a white ghost who uses a white flag for one episode, Glooky, a frequent victim of Pac's mouth and other forms of abuse, and Mavis, an unseen gossipy ghost who passes information fast. There's also these two female ghosts who never get named as far as I can tell, but do appear a few times as well, so screw it, I'm gonna add them to the pile. There's also, and this is an actual last-minute addition, I'm kind of saying this nonsense off the cup, but there's another ghost called E-Ghost who shows up in the Halloween special, who acts as like an Igor stand-in for this Dr. Frankenstein character, and then gets gobbled as well, and he's never seen again for like the second half of this special. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And wouldn't you know it, we are still somehow not done, because Ghostly Adventures also has multiple subspecies of unique ghosts, some acting as grunt fodder, and some as proper variants. The most notable ones are the Cyclops ghosts, of which Ogle is a member, the Tentacle ghosts, of which the Creepies are a member, and the Guardian ghosts, who act as Betrayus' royal guard and usually stay in the Netherworld to protect his palace. There's also fire ghosts, little fiery wisps that burn things and are weak to water. Betrayus is also a fire ghost, in fact, notably different looking though. Fire ghosts have variants in the ice ghosts, who act the same but with ice, and lightning/electric ghosts, again same idea with electricity. While Spectre can manipulate electricity, the lightning ghosts are primarily the property of the Ghostly Adventure games. Then there's the ghost sharks that guard Pac-Atlantis, these aqua ghosts that tend to make up Captain Banshee's crew, there's the jellyfish ghosts that resemble turn to blue ghosts, and from space we have the ghosteroids, giant ghostly asteroids that themselves are populated by alien ghosts, the ghosts of an unknown alien species. It's possible this is just the ghost of a planet itself, and the aliens or whatever former inhabitants lived on the now dead planetoid. Finally, there's these drill bit ghosts that are used for the tip of this drill that Buttocks tried to use to drill through Pac-World. The Pac-Man Wiki gave them their own article, so sure, why the hell not at this point. Whew, and that should be all the ghosts in Ghostly Adventures, so yay us, I suppose. And you know, I hope that was all of them, because wouldn't you know, we are still not done. So, from 2016 to 2017, Namco opened various pop-up stores, chain stores selling various kinds of Pac-Man merchandise and that only stayed open for a few months. To promote these stores, they made several shorts involving Pac-Man and some new friends of his, Pac-Marie and Pac-Little. Then they, of course, also decided to make some new and unique ghosts for these things. Harry, Kelly, Terry, and Rocky. Cause I guess they just didn't think the main four were marketable enough? I don't know. Like Marie and Little, these guys only showed up in media and merchandise directly relating to the Pac store, including 6 shorts made to promote them. The ghosts only appear in the last 2 of these shorts, however, except Harry, who for some reason never appeared in these things at all, only the merch itself. For the others, Kelly was shown to be somewhat vain and seemingly have a crush on Pac-Man like Pinky sometimes did. Rocky seems to be the tough one, similar to Blinky, but also was beaten up rather easily by the girls. Finally, Terry is actually Kelly's younger sister, who tends to be the test dummy for Kelly's makeup. So that's interesting, we don't tend to get a whole lot of family stuff between the ghosts. As I said, these guys only appeared in these shorts and on the Pac Store merch. The line was discontinued in 2017, and they haven't appeared since then. Same with Pac-Marie and Pac-Little. So there's not much more to say to them beyond that, though. And with that, we have covered every ghost in Pac-Man. Nah, just kidding, we still got Shadow Labyrinth. Now, I don't know if I really need to talk about this game and or the secret level prequel, but like, I don't know, it's still technically Pac-Man media. It's just that this game and the show is also set in a very different interpretation of the Pac-Man mythos. A version that also ties into the United Galactic Space Federation, which is a huge interconnected timeline linking together like all of Namco's arcade games, and it's like a huge thing. Like, oh my god, if you've never heard of this thing before, this is so... Just mentioning it cracks open a humongous, bulging can of worms. I would absolutely need its own video to really drill into the nuts and bolts of it all. Hell, I probably need 2 videos to talk about it all. It's crazy. So, let's try and keep this brief. In this game, the Ghost Gang take the form of the G-Host, alien parasites that can assimilate with nearby material to fend off threats. Clyde, Pinky, and Blinky's counterparts each get a dedicated boss fight, alongside G-Host Bug, a glitched ghost that kinda looks like Inky, but might also be based on Glitchy or just the 256 bug in general, as well as the dark G-Host Thebe. It's also revealed the G-Host's true form are the Brogzas, with each of the 4 getting another boss fight alongside a team up against the 4 at once. Once again, this game is just a humongous can of worms, and in order to really get into the nuts and bolts of it all, so much context would have to be given across the board, so, I think I might just need to cut it there. G-Hosts, they're pretty cool. We're gonna throw them on the pile too, absolutely. And with that, we have now officially, completely, entirely covered every ghost in the Pac-Man franchise. Probably. In total, by my count, there have been about 95 unique ghosts and ghost species introduced across this franchise. Assuming I miscounted. I don't know. The number will be on screen and it will be correct no matter what. This turned out to be a lot longer than I thought, I'm going to be completely honest. And also, honestly, I need to make more Pac-Man videos, dude. Like, this franchise is so fascinating to me, you know? Like, it is so huge and so weird. Like, you think you know everything you know about Pac-Man, but then you go onto the Pac-Man wiki and it just gets weirder and weirder the further down you go. It's crazy. Anyway, thanks for watching all this madness, and I hope that you enjoyed learning about the ghosts of Pac-Man. Maybe you even found a new favorite spooky specter. Happy Halloween, everyone! And also Merry Christmas, just in case I don't do a proper Christmas-themed episode.